Samantha's heart sank as she watched her passport catch fire, the flames licking up the edges before turning it into nothing more than ashes. Her mother-in-law, Marjorie, stood there, a twisted smile on her lips, while her husband, Ryan, watched with a smug grin. "Guess you're staying home then, love," Marjorie said, her voice dripping with a mix of satisfaction and spite. Samantha couldn't believe what she was seeing. Just days ago, she had been excitedly planning her long-awaited vacation to the Great Barrier Reef, a trip she'd been dreaming about for years. Now, all she could do was watch as her plans went up in smoke, literally. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Because you don't belong here," Marjorie replied, her smile never wavering. Ryan said nothing, but the smirk on his face said it all. They had planned this, and they were enjoying every second of it. Samantha took a deep breath, willing herself to stay calm. She wasn't just any woman who could be pushed around. "I think you've both underestimated me," she said quietly, her eyes narrowing as she looked at them. "This isn't over." The calm before the storm. Samantha had always been independent, carving out her own path through life. At 28, she was a linguistics expert, fluent in 5 languages, and spent half the year traveling the world, teaching and learning about different cultures. She met Ryan during a trip back home to Melbourne and, despite her better judgment, fell for his easygoing charm. They married quickly, and she thought she'd found her partner for life. But from the moment they said, "I do," things began to shift. Ryan's mother, Marjorie, was a force to be reckoned with, a woman who believed that anyone who married her son should cater to his every whim. Samantha's career and independence were things that Marjorie could never understand or accept. "You should be at home looking after my son, not gallivanting around the globe," Marjorie would often say, her tone sharp and dismissive. Even when Samantha was away on work, Marjorie's disapproval echoed through the snide messages she left. But Samantha had learned to brush them off, until now. The trip that wasn't meant to be. As the days passed, the atmosphere at home grew more toxic. Ryan's attitude was colder than ever. He acted like Samantha's career was a personal affront to him, something that made her less of a wife in his eyes. "You're always off on some adventure while I'm stuck here working my fingers to the bone," he'd say, throwing her long absences in her face. Samantha tried to ignore it, but the truth was she missed the man she thought she'd married. The one who used to be excited to see her come through the door, who would wrap her in a hug after months apart. Now, it felt like she was living with a stranger. One evening, as she prepared dinner, Ryan casually mentioned a trip his family was planning to the Whitsunday Islands. "You should come with us," he said, though his tone made it sound more like a command than an invitation. "Why would I join you if I'm not even welcome?" Samantha shot back, tired of the games. Ryan's eyes narrowed, and for the first time, his true colors showed. "You don't get it, do you? You're only used to us as planning these trips. We need your expertise to make this happen," he said, smirking as he reached for his phone. Samantha felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't just a family holiday. It was a power play, and she was nothing more than a pawn. Breaking point. The day of the planned trip arrived, and Samantha was ready for anything. She had her own passport safely hidden, a backup plan in place. When they reached Marjorie's house, the air was thick with tension. Samantha noticed the glances Marjorie and Ryan exchanged, as if sharing some unspoken secret. "Be a dear and fetch the carry-on from the other room, would you?" Marjorie asked sweetly. But Samantha saw through her act. She had been around manipulative people long enough to know when a trap was being set. When she returned, Marjorie was holding what she thought was Samantha's passport. With a malicious grin, she said, "You won't be needing this where you're going," and set it alight with a flick of her lighter. Samantha watched in silence, a calm smile playing on her lips. "Marjorie, whose passport did you burn?" she asked, her voice level. Marjorie's smile faltered for the first time. "What do you mean?" "It's yours, of course," she snapped. Samantha reached into her pocket and pulled out her real passport, holding it up for them to see. "This is mine," she said, her eyes never leaving Marjorie's face. The color drained from Marjorie's cheeks as she realized what she'd done. "You burned Ryan's passport," Samantha said, watching the horror spread across both their faces. The aftermath. The room erupted into chaos. Ryan's anger turned towards his mother as they started blaming each other for their failed scheme. Samantha stood there, watching them tear into each other, feeling nothing but relief. She had seen enough. This wasn't a marriage, it was a joke, a twisted game that she no longer wanted to play. "I'm done," Samantha said, cutting through their argument. "I'll be speaking to my lawyer first thing tomorrow. And believe me, you'll be hearing from him too." She turned on her heel and walked out, feeling a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in years. This wasn't the ending she had expected, but it was a new beginning, a chance to reclaim her life and her happiness. And as she walked away from the mess they'd made, she knew she was ready to start over, stronger and more determined than ever. Rising from the ashes, Samantha moved out of the house that night, her mind racing but her heart strangely calm. She found a temporary place to stay in a cozy apartment near Melbourne city centre. As she unpacked her few belongings, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. It was the first time in years she could breathe without the weight of Marjorie's judgments or Ryan's cold indifference pressing down on her. The next morning, Samantha made a call to her lawyer and set the wheels in motion for a divorce. She wasn't going to waste any more time in a marriage that had become nothing but a facade. The legal proceedings began swiftly, and as she laid out her story to her lawyer, he was shocked by the extent of Ryan and Marjorie's manipulation. "They'll try to fight this," he warned her, "but you've got a solid case. Stay strong, Samantha." Community support word about Samantha's story began to spread among her friends and colleagues. The story of how her mother-in-law tried to sabotage her life, only to have it backfire spectacularly, became a hot topic in her social circles. Messages of support started pouring in, with people reaching out to express their admiration for her strength and resilience. One of her close friends, Mia, a journalist for a popular blog in Australia, asked if she could share Samantha's story. "This needs to be told," Mia said. "So many people stay silent in toxic relationships, thinking they're alone. Your story could inspire them to take control of their lives." Samantha hesitated at first, but then she thought about all the times she felt powerless and alone. If her story could help even one person break free from a manipulative situation, then it was worth it. She agreed, and soon Mia's article titled, "Burning Bridges: How One Woman Rose Above Family Betrayal," went live. Going viral, the article took off like wildfire. It wasn't just a story, it became a movement. People from all around Australia and beyond shared their own experiences of toxic family dynamics and how they overcame them. The hashtag burned but not broken started trending, with thousands of people rallying around Samantha's story of empowerment and resilience. Samantha couldn't believe the impact her story was having. It wasn't just her journey anymore, it was a collective voice of people refusing to be victims of their circumstances. Her inbox was flooded with messages of gratitude and solidarity from strangers who felt seen and heard because of her bravery. The confrontation amidst the growing public support, Ryan and Marjorie's response was less than graceful. They were furious, blaming Samantha for airing their dirty laundry to the world. Ryan, in a desperate attempt to save face, even tried to contact her, begging her to come back and stop the media frenzy. "You think this is about revenge?" Samantha replied calmly during one of their calls. "This is about truth. I'm not going to stay silent while you and your mother try to paint me as the villain. I'm done playing your games." Marjorie, however, wasn't so quick to admit defeat. She launched into a smear campaign of her own, spreading lies about Samantha to anyone who would listen. But the damage had already been done. The world had seen Marjorie's true colors, and there was no going back. Moving forward with her newfound freedom, Samantha decided to take a leap of faith and invest the alimony money into something she'd always dreamed of, opening her own language and cultural exchange center in Melbourne. She named it Phoenix House, symbolizing rebirth and rising from the ashes of her past. Phoenix House became an instant success, offering language classes, cultural workshops, and travel consultations. It wasn't just a business, it was a community space where people could share their stories, learn from one another, and find support in their own journeys of self-discovery and growth. Samantha's story became a cornerstone of Phoenix House's mission. She often shared her experiences with new clients, reminding them that no matter how hard life. Months later, as Samantha concluded a busy day at the center, an unexpected visitor arrived, Ryan. He looked different, bearing the marks of time and perhaps regret. For a moment, they stood in awkward silence, the weight of their past lingering between them. "I've heard about everything you've accomplished here," Ryan said, his voice softer than she recalled. "I guess I didn't realize how strong you truly were." Samantha raised an eyebrow. "Did you travel all this way just to compliment me?" she asked, her tone neutral. He sighed and shook his head. "No, I came to apologize," he said, meeting her gaze for the first time in what felt like an eternity. "For everything. For letting my mother control me, for not standing up for you, and for not being the man you deserved." Samantha took a deep breath, processing his words. She could see his sincerity, but the past remained unchanged. "Ryan, I appreciate the apology, but you need to understand, it wasn't just your actions that hurt me, it was the betrayal. And while I'm glad you've recognized your mistakes, I've moved on." Ryan nodded, a bittersweet smile on his face. "I figured you'd say that. I'm glad you're doing so well, Sam. You deserve all the happiness in the world." With that, he left, and Samantha watched him go, feeling nothing but closure. It was the end of a chapter she'd believed would haunt her forever, but instead, it felt like a fresh start. As Samantha's life continued to unfold, her connection with Daniel blossomed into something more than friendship. Their shared passion for languages and cultures evolved into a deep bond, one built on mutual respect and understanding. Daniel admired her strength, not just in overcoming her past, but in the way she used her experiences to uplift others. They began collaborating on projects for Phoenix House, expanding its reach to other cities in Australia. Their goal was to create a network of centers dedicated to empowering individuals from all walks of life, providing them with the tools they needed to learn, grow, and discover their own paths forward. One sunny afternoon in Sydney, as they were concluding a workshop on cross-cultural communication, Daniel turned to Samantha with a smile. "You know," he said, a twinkle in his eye, "I've traveled all over the world, but I've never felt more at home than I do right here, working with you." Samantha felt her heart skip a beat. Samantha hadn't anticipated finding love again, especially after all she had endured. Yet, with Daniel, it felt different, genuine, authentic, and precisely what she needed. Time marched on, and Phoenix House became a celebrated name not only in Australia but on a global scale. Samantha and Daniel spearheaded international conferences, advocating for cultural exchange and the significance of understanding in a world that often felt fragmented. They were partners in every sense of the word, both romantically and in their mission to make a positive impact. Together, they launched the Rise Again initiative, a program designed to support women escaping abusive relationships, providing them with resources, legal assistance, and a supportive community. Samantha's journey had come full circle, and now she was offering others the chance to rebuild their lives, just as she had. On a tranquil evening back in Melbourne, Samantha stood on her condo's balcony, gazing at the city lights. Daniel approached her from behind, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You did it, you know," he murmured. "Did what?" Samantha inquired, leaning into his embrace. "You transformed the worst thing that ever happened to you into the best thing that could have happened," he replied. "You took all that pain and turned it into something beautiful." Samantha smiled, her eyes welling up with gratitude. "I guess I did, didn't I?" she said, her voice barely a whisper. "And I wouldn't have done it any other way." As they stood there, holding each other under the starlit sky, Samantha realized this was merely the beginning. Her past had shaped her, but it didn't define her. She had discovered her strength, her voice, and most importantly, her true self. And with Daniel by her side and Phoenix House flourishing, she was prepared for whatever new adventures life might bring. Because in the end, Samantha wasn't simply a survivor, she was a force to be reckoned with, a beacon of hope for anyone who dared to rise again from the ashes.